This is Theology Bits, a ministry of Central Lutheran Church, Eugene, Oregon. I'm Pastor Ben. We continue this week in our series on gratitude and grief. And today, in this video, we will be focusing on Romans chapter 1. Now, this is kind of a striking chapter for us to be looking at, the second half of Romans 1. Controversial sometimes, but within it is a deep theology that is very helpful. And remember that this is, in this series on gratitude and grief, is in service of a season of creation that we are celebrating here at Central Lutheran, but has been more and more common all over in different church bodies. And the gratitude and grief is what we have about creation. Well, Paul here provides a new angle to this discussion, which begins with an indictment. He has the statement, you are without excuse. That you have exchanged, this is a key term here, exchanged the glory of God for the image of creation. That dynamic is very important as we're talking about gratitude and grief in the structure of creation, because it suggests that the problem was not actually an ignorance of creation, but focusing on it too much, that you started to serve the creation and not the creator. See, this is an important point. In the image of creation, there's a language of idolatry there, that who did you really worship? And that you have the glory of God in your hands and you exchanged it in self only for the creation. As if to say the problem wasn't that you didn't focus on creation, it's that you only focused on creation and you didn't focus on the creator. And the reason you're without excuse is because the second piece of that is, if you would have taken that very focus on creation and seen through creation that God can be seen in creation, that you had it in front of you this whole time, but you've missed it. So ironically, there's some irony here, that the problem you have is not isolationism. It's not that you focus too little on the gifts of God, but that you focus too much on the gifts of God, so that you saw them only as gifts. And so therefore you saw them only as the things themselves and lost that they were in fact gifts from God, and therefore you didn't see God at all. And so this is a new level of the gratitude that we have. The thankfulness is not just for the thing itself, for the thing itself, the res se in Latin, but instead it is from where did it come? Because after all, creation, its very purpose, our very purpose, all creation, including humans here, is to be a means of grace. You need the means. Creation is the means. The things in creation are the means. Most usually other people are the means. But the focus always needed to be on grace. And so that when you are seeing this, grace, by the way, is the same word for thanks, Gift and thanks are all one word in Greek. But that the creation was to lead you to grace. When you saw the means without the grace, then you lost it all. And it also is what will lead you into a space of grief that is only a spiral you can't get out of. Because if you cannot see this leading to God the giver, then all there are the means, and the means are always temporary, or at best, they are particular. There are particular means for this particular day. There'll be new means another day. But if you have elevated the means and lost the grace, then it will disappoint you because you think this particular temporary thing is going to be in some way grounding your reality, and it can't. It's not made to do that. Creation was not a point action, as if to say, here was creation, and then here we are living along that way. But all the creation happened here, so this just jumps forward and forward, kind of thing. We keep using that singular asset. No. That would be, by the way, a very deistic approach. Instead, creation is what God does right now. God didn't stop creating a long time ago. God keeps creating. Every day, wherever there is life, there is God's new creation every day. And so Paul is saying this is what they completely missed. And so then, so that we can understand where Paul is heading here, is he does something that we can often miss by reading too quickly. It's that God gave them over to their desires. This is something that might be surprising because what he says is, well, the world's corrupt, so forth. But notice here, God did something to allow it. God gave the people over. And so what do you have? You have a tension here. It's important to understand that Paul lives in tension. That on the one hand, they were the ones serving the creation rather than the creator. On the other hand, God gave them over to their own desires. The desires were already there, but that this tension between creation and creator is always hard. It's easy to point fingers at this audience that he's talking about in Rome. It's unclear if he's really talking about people there or if he's talking more generally about what humans have done secondarily. I tend to think it's more the second, what humans have done just generally. But that is a very hard thing, and so we should not necessarily come down too difficult on this. Everybody is struggling with this. It's easy to get really excited about the means because the means are what we experience, and we can very easily focus on those and not see what's really going on. And so that's a tension, and in that our own desires are leading us that way, and that God gave us over to our desires in order for that tension to be something we live in. And Paul doesn't solve that. He doesn't say, well, it was actually good for us, or this was the original intent the whole time. He leaves that open. But instead, there is a suggestion, a biblical theological approach is to say, and then came the cross and the resurrection. But especially with the cross, that the world was in fact crucified in Galatians, it says. And that there is now a way that we can be both recognizing the Creator and and living in creation, which is through the best English translation, Christian service. Serving one another is serving the Creator. That one of the things the cross and resurrection do is it bridges this tension so that when we are acting in creation, we are acting toward Creator. It's not as if that was a brand new thing. One could argue that Torah made the same argument, that how we treated one another mattered to God. But this makes it even more explicit, that the division between Creator and creation has been bridged in the incarnation. That's less of a Pauline term, more of a Gospels concept, but it's all throughout there, leading to the cross and the resurrection, and that has allowed that we can hold the gratitude that these are all gifts and grief that these gifts taken away from us really do matter. The means do matter to us because the two things are not as separate as maybe they once were. That Jesus has changed the character of the world so that the thing in itself leads to the glory of the invisible God. And so this is the fourth in our installment on gratitude and grief in our season of creation from a very different perspective, but helpful in structuring theologically. How do we manage this whole concept of creation and creator, and what has Jesus done as an asset for that? Stay tuned for one more video as we come bringing this season of creation series on gratitude and grief to a close next week. This is Theology Bits. I'm Pastor Ben.